Hey everyone, thank you for dropping by. This is gonna be my first video, and it's just a simple introduction and guide to Genshin Impact. So, if you're a new player or an old one, I hope you stick around and learn something. So yeah, I've been playing Genshin Impact since its launch, and I must say I've been hooked ever since. And since some of my friends usually ask me about the game, about character building, some quests and whatnot, it's why I decided to start making this guide. So, I'm also gonna inject some terms commonly used in the community so you'll be more familiarized with them. And without any more delay, this is Godric, and welcome to the video. I'm pretty sure you already know what the game is coming in here, but if you have no idea, I'd like to lay it all out. So Genshin Impact is a free-to-play open-world RPG made and developed by MiHoYo, which is now Hoyoverse. It features the story of the Traveler twins who encounters an unknown god and takes one of them captive. You then select one of the twins to be your main character, and you set out to look for your twin. The game is playable on mobile, PC, and PlayStation, and in addition to that, it's a gacha game in nature, which if you don't know, the game releases limited time available characters, and you can get them when you try to draw or pull for them from their respective event banners. Like I said, you start the game selecting one of the two twins. He or she will then be called in-game as the Traveler, or so called in the community as MC. As you play, you'll be introduced to different elements early on, namely the Anemo, Pyro, Cryo, Hydro, Electro, Geo, and Dendro. Although side note, no Dendro character up to this point is playable yet. This is one of the core elements of the game that you need to know about. And as you go along, you'll be more familiarized with these elements and how to use them to your advantage. In addition, you'll notice in-game different star ratings which simply indicate an item's rarity. For example, characters are either 4 or 5 stars, and weapons can range from 1 to 5 star, and as with other items. Adventure rank, or AR, is seen when you go to your menu. So this here is your adventure rank. Basically, it's your player or your account level, not to be confused with the character level, which is different. In addition, you also see the world level here, and it simply indicates the difficulty of the overworld monsters. At certain ARs, you will be required to clear a certain domain for you to advance your AR and world level. You can also click on these icons to see how you can level them up. As mentioned before, your AR is different from your character level. And speaking of characters, let's go to the character screen. Your first character, obviously, is the Traveler, and this here are his stats and details. As you can see on the left are the different sections, and on the right are general details. For you to be able to advance in the story, you need to build your characters and your party composed of 4 members, so keep in mind that properly building your party is just as important as building your characters. Now, a character's max level is 90, but you don't really need to max them out unless you have enough resources and or you just like them. Also at certain levels, at 20, 40, 50, 60, 70, and 80, characters need to be ascended first in order to continue on leveling. Ascension requires certain materials which can be found by fighting bosses and picking up materials in the overworld. In other words, you really need to explore to be able to unlock more monsters, bosses, and domains in the map. Now let's go to the weapon section. Each character has their own weapon, and there are 5 types. There's the sword, bow, polearm, catalyst, and claymore. Weapons, by the way, can be picked up from exploration via chests or quests, refinement via blacksmith, or through the gacha system. And similar to characters, weapons are also needed to be ascended in order to be maxed out. But unlike characters, I generally advise maxing out your weapon to level 90. Now you'll see here the refinement rank, followed by its passive effect. Refinement is another form of enhancement where you sacrifice a copy of its own. This improves the passive effect to a maximum of refinement 5. Side note, If you ever come up with multiple copies of a 5-star weapon, it's generally advised not to refine them as they're very rare. You're better off using them on your other characters. Now on artifacts. Simply put, artifacts are another form of equipment as they provide you additional significant stats. There are 5 pieces, namely the flower, the feather, the sands or the timepiece, the goblet, and the headpiece or the circlet. You'll see on the right their provided stats. This is the main stat and these are the substats. Below them are the set bonuses. You can mix and match 2 different 2-piece sets or 1 4-piece set, and their use varies on each character. By the way, you'll also often see people asking about a character's BIS or best in slot. So naturally, the acronym works for both weapons and artifacts. One thing to know about artifacts is you get specific pieces through luck. Yeah, it's RNG based for specific pieces and stats, but you can farm 2 sets from one domain. RNG, by the way, is, in case you don't know, a random number generation or generator. So yeah, I could go on and on about artifact building, but that's gotta be on a separate video. But general advice you'll hear from players is that you don't farm artifacts until you reach AR 45, since that's the rank that unlocks the 5-star artifact domains. Now let's move on to constellations. You'll see here 6 icons indicating the character's constellation. So they're lit up if they're activated, and you can get constellations when you get a copy of them from, a gacha or an event. So each one has a different effect, so they improve your character or your party as a whole. I'd say that the character's constellation, especially for 5 stars, are, just for luxury. And if you get them, they will definitely help you out in game, but most of the time, having none is okay. You also notice my Traveler has 6, right? That's because you get them for free when you go on through the story. And side note, you'll often see this being referred to in the community as C0, C1 to C6. So C obviously refers to the constellation. Now on talents. So talents basically are a character's skill, although in-game, the word skill is used differently and pertains to something else. Now talents are either active or passive. And active talents include the normal attack, the actual skill or elemental skill, and the burst, also the elemental burst or the ultimate. Now the skill is the one you can freely use anytime, given that it's not on cooldown. And most skills when used on monsters generate energy, and that energy is used to fill your burst, which has a cost depending on the character or their burst. On the other hand, passive talents are, passive. That's what they are. And some of them are helpful for your utility, and some are helpful for your combat. You also notice that some of them require certain character ascension levels to be unlocked. So this one is character ascension phase 4, which is level 60. So like I said, it's generally advised to ascend characters at that level because it's the last ascension phase that unlocks the final passive talent. So generally, I'd also advise personally to level up your talents at a comfortable level, so that depends on you, but for me, I'd say a minimum of 6 and a maximum of 9. Although some characters, take note of this, that mainly supports by the way, can go without leveling their normal attacks, or even their skill or their burst, which depends on the utility that you want to use for them, also to save your materials. That being said, talents can be maxed to a level of 10, but that's only possible if you have the Crown of Insight, which is this one, and it's given as a limited duration event reward. So crowning is the term. It must be a priority for your main DPS and or characters that you really like. So now we're on the profile section. So you come here if you want to know more about your characters, and as I wasn't able to show you earlier because the Traveler doesn't have it, being the main character, right? So for your other characters, you have your friendship level, which has a maximum level of 10. So this just unlocks more stories for your character. And when you reach level 10, you'll be able to see or unlock their name card. For example, this one. Now, before we proceed, I'm just gonna introduce some of these terms in case you don't know them. F2P, which is free to play. It's where you don't spend actual money to buy items in game. And on the other hand, a whale is, someone who spends in game. Although in Genshin Impact, they also have other soft spending schemes, namely the Blessing of the Welkin Moon and the Battle Pass. So this one is the Blessing of the Welkin Moon. It gives you an instant 300 Genesis crystals and daily 90 Primogems. That's for 30 days. And the Battle Pass is, just like any other Battle Pass in other games. As you level them up, you get more of the rewards. So let's first talk about Genesis crystals. It's the currency that you directly exchange from cash. So for first-time buyers, the amount is doubled, which mine isn't. So you can buy the enhancement bundles from the gift shop here, Adventurers or bundle, or all these stuff. And you can buy skins or the outfits. Also, you can directly exchange them for Primogems. So, Primogems are what you use to buy fates, which I'll explain later. And in addition to that, Primogems are also given freely via exploration. So you get them from chests, from the quests, or redeem codes, and sometimes from the devs themselves via in-game mail, especially after a maintenance period. So, lastly, Primogems can also be used to buy resin. So resin is what you can say as your energy or your ticket. So I say ticket because resin is what you use to claim materials from domains and bosses, and it's capped, as you can see, at 160. So it replenishes over time as well, as you can see here. So finally, we have the Master List Star Glitter and the Master List Stardust. So these currencies are given to you from, as you can see, the Wish system, which is the gacha system. So you can exchange them further for fates or other characters or certain materials. Now let's head on to the wishing screen. So it's right here. So Wish is the official name of the gacha system in Genshin Impact. And there are 3 different banners, as you can see. And basically, if you don't know, a banner is what shows which character or weapon you can get. It simply means that you have a higher chance of getting who or what's in the banner. Now, if you're a new player, there will be an additional one here called the Beginner's Luck or something, and you should definitely pull there because it's discounted with only 8 Acquaint Fates instead of 10. So, you technically get 2 free pulls. So going back, like I said, there are 3 banners: the character event, the weapon event, and the standard. So Acquaint Fates, the blue one, so this is used for the standard banner. And Intertwined Fates, this pink and blue one, is used on either the character or the event weapon banner. So keep in mind that you shouldn't spend your gems or your Primogems on Acquaint Fates, the blue ones, because if you remember, the character ascension and leveling up of your adventure rank, you get free Acquaint Fates on every other character ascension phase, as well as on your AR level up. So it's generally advised to spend on the event banners only. Now, a commonly asked question about wishing is the pity system. So let's first talk about rates. You'll see the rates under the details, but for a more simplified version, for both character event and standard banner, a 4-star character or weapon is guaranteed in every 10 pulls. Then, a 5-star character is guaranteed in every 90 pulls. So, remember that once you get a 4-star or a 5-star character or weapon, the wish count, also called pity, resets. Now, about the character event banner. As a new player, you have a clean slate of wishes. So your first 4 or 5 star pull will have a higher chance of being one of the featured characters. This chance refers to you having a 50-50, a term you'll often see or hear in the community. This simply pertains to a 50% chance of getting the featured character and the 50% chance of not getting them. Say you got a 5-star character, but it's not the one featured, it's not her. Then, that's the only time that the next time you get a 5-star character, it will be guaranteed to whoever's in the featured banner. So this is a little annoying because even if you do get a guarantee, the amount of fates or primogems you use would be doubled, basically. Unless of course you become lucky and you get your next 5-star sooner. Okay? Alright. In the same manner, remember I said not to buy fates for the standard banner is because if you don't get the 5-star character featured in the event banner, in other words, if you lose your 50-50, yeah, you will get one of the characters in the standard banner. So that cycle would just reset. Just remember that once you get the featured character, your next one will always be 50-50, and if you lose, your next one will be guaranteed. Now moving on to the weapon event banner, it's a little more complicated, but recent updates have made it quote-unquote easier to get your weapon of choice. We're only focusing on the 5-star weapons here, by the way. And that being said, just a side note, if you think you have no use for the featured 4-star weapons, then don't pull on the weapon banner, because you'll get a lot of them as you go for the 5 stars. Now, as you can see, there are 2 5-star weapons featured, and that's always the case here for weapon event banners. So for whichever 5-star weapon you want, you go to the epitomized path right here, and you chart course for that weapon. This is very important, so don't forget that. The epitomized path is a guarantee for the 5-star weapon that you want, the one that you chose here. But it needs 2 points for the guarantee. In other words, these 2 points are field pulls. Now, pity here is different, like I said. Your guaranteed 5-star is on 80 pulls instead of 90. And by default, your first 5-star pull has a chance of being one of the featured 5-star weapons or not. So if you lose that pull, you get one epitomized path, and only then will your next 5-star pull become one of the featured weapons. And finally, in case you don't get it still, your second epitomized path point will be ticked, so this will be 2 out of 2. Only then will your charted weapon become finally guaranteed. So overall, because of these conditions and how it could potentially force you about 240 pulls for the single 5-star weapon that you want, you need to consider them as the weapon banner is dubbed by many players as whale territory. So we keep talking about building characters, but who should you build? I think what's good about the game is that you can really build and use any character that you like. Although this honestly depends on your playstyle, your taste, or if you want to adapt to the meta or not. But generally, your party of 4 may consist of 1 or 2 damage dealers, a DPS or a sub DPS, with the other 2 as a buffer or a healer or even a shielder, or even all of them in one. So different characters have different sets of skills, weapons, and passives that can help your main damage dealers dish out better results. That being said, you should first focus on one character that you like, or the one that you want to make as your main DPS, then go on to your sub DPS and supports. Although keep in mind that it's best to properly read their talents first so you can fully utilize them. Remember, your party composition is just as important as building your characters. As for who you should pull, remember us talking about wishing. Apparently, as of the later patches, the devs began rolling out double event banners, meaning there are 2 5-star event banners simultaneously, so you can have more freedom to choose. Also know that they always provide a free trial of the characters, which you can find on the event page. So you can get a feel of how you could play them or how they'd participate in your team. And lastly, if you have any specific questions or anything you want me to discuss about, please let me know in the comments so I can make a video out of it. I know that most of the things I said here are already available out there in other guides, or they could easily be learned. So aside from the random tips I gave, here are some generic notes that I personally advise friends and newer players. Use your Adventurer's Handbook. For this tip, we're looking at the Experience tab to be specific. Especially for new players, you can use this to sort of gauge your progress in the game. It also gives you rewards such as Primogems, weapons, and artifacts. Found in the same Adventurer's Handbook, when you go to Commissions tab, you'll see your daily commissions here. Aside from that, you can also choose which region you prefer to get your daily commissions from. Lastly, still in the Adventurer's Handbook, when you go to the Enemies tab, although it's still buggy and it doesn't really show all of them, you can track your preferred or chosen monsters for easy farming of their materials. This next one is just to tell you that you don't have to worry too much about your damage early game. Because some players, they become so worried at early ARs that during that time, you should only be focusing on exploring and leveling up your stat use of the 7. Try to max out the stat use first while you're also building your main DPS, and because the stat U, when you level them up, they give you more stamina. In the same light, early on, it's okay to rely on physical damage, meaning there's no elements involved, but at the same time, it's also fun to try and experiment with the elemental skills and bursts. Having mentioned the status of the 7, you can use the interactive map in the Hoyo Lab app or the actual map in-game for pinning certain items that you need to keep track of. Finally, maximize the use of the Hoyo Lab app. They have a daily sign-in thing going on in there, and you get in-game rewards as well. So now I think that this is an important question, especially for new players who want in on the game. So I'll try to answer this objectively. At this point, the game is released for a year and a half, almost, and there are new characters being released in almost every patch. With this, most of them are assigned with materials from newer domains or bosses. For example, you want to get the current character, which is Yae Miko, and you'd have to go through a lot of Archon and story quests just to unlock the boss that drops her ascension materials. But for me, it's understandable because maybe it's just my personal headcanon, albeit I have to say a logical one, that these characters we get join the Traveler's party, story-wise. And at the same time, them being used early on in the story would make no sense, as the Travelers shouldn't and wouldn't have met them yet in the first place. That being said, I feel like it's going to disrupt the player's following of the story in a way, because instead of following the story, the newer players may skip around just to go to the later parts of the map, to unlock the materials. But in hindsight, my positive take on this is, unlike us who played since launch, most of us finished the story early on and we just got bored. We had to wait for weeks for the other parts of the map to be developed and updated. And if you're only joining now, you'll have a lot of time to catch up and just savor it. In addition, now that more parts of the map are up, you'll have more freedom to choose which artifact domains you want to farm. So overall, I really don't think it's late, or at least too late. So if you have any questions, suggestions, or corrections about the video, please let me know and I'll be happy to address them. Also, since this is my first video released, please consider liking, commenting, subscribing, all that good stuff to help me boost my channel. Thank you so much. Once again, this is Godric and thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.